Hello and welcome. I'm Bruce and this is Speed and Color. If you joined us for episode 1, we did an intro to the podcast. If you joined us for episode 2, I got to interview Mac, and we found out we found out a fair amount about him, and what makes Mac tick and where he's from and all that good kind of stuff. So now, as I told you in episode 2, it's time to turn the tables, and Mac is going to get to interview me. So Mac, get the hell out of my chair and get into the host chair.
I met Bruce while I was at work at Calgary Harley-Davidson. He was a customer of mine, a great customer of mine. I always enjoyed whenever he decided to walk his way through the door. It was a very easy relationship right off the bat. We both clicked very, very well, I feel. And you know, Bruce mentioned earlier that customer service of mine is good, but when you have good people that come up to you, it's not about customer service. You're just having a conversation, and that is really nice.
That's true.
So a couple of times later, after we've exchanged a little bit of money and a few words, Bruce brought up to me the idea of potentially doing a podcast together. And in all honesty, that sounded great. It sounds like a great idea to get the word out, to spread the passion and the feeling that we both have, and to see if we can build a little bit more of a community, build a little bit more of a following for the motorcycle community, and for us in particular, the chopper and bobber community. Because yes, like we said on the last show, the motorcycle event we were at the other night, it lacked in its cool custom chopper bobber stuff. And all motorcycles are great, whether you're on a moped or a bagger, it doesn't matter. But it is nice to see some custom made bikes from time to time. So,
I agree.
So welcome, Bruce. Thank you for letting me introduce you, and thank you for telling us about yourself. So we're gonna get into just a couple of questions, trying to get to know you a little bit more. So
let's see if I can give you a couple answers.
Let's see. The first one, we'll just start off in the early stages. Where did you grow up? Where did you work?
Okay. Born in Bonneville, Saskatchewan. Dad was in the forces, so we moved around a little bit, not a lot. But at the age of, I think I would have been 3 or 4, wound up in Ottawa, the nation's capital, where I grew up, went to school, went to high school, and into community college at Algonquin College in Ottawa. Once I got out of college, I decided the West was the place for me. I had always loved Calgary. I had traveled out here a couple of times. And I decided that that's where I wanted to be, was close to the Rockies. The weather, the landscape, everything just worked for me out here. I really believe that there are places in this world where we just feel completely comfortable and at home. And for me, that was Calgary. The other place that I get that feeling is Negril, Jamaica. But unfortunately, I haven't figured that one out yet, but I did get to Calgary. So that's the early stages of Bruce.
Awesome, Bruce. Thanks for that. I personally would really like to know whether this is on the East or West Coast, it doesn't matter, but what was it like growing up in the 70s and 80s as I grew up in the 90s and early 2000s? I am very nostalgic towards that era, and especially with cars and motorcycles, that's a big thing for me. So what was that like for you?
It was a great time. It was very interesting. So when I graduated from high school, I started doing auto body and got into custom auto body, which was cool at the time, but I guess I was enough of a thinker or a planner. I don't know what motivated me, but I knew really quickly that working on everybody else's cars wasn't going to work for me, because I wanted to work on my own. And working in auto body at that time wasn't going to give me the money or the time that I would need to do what I really wanted to do with my own stuff. I did do some work at that time on custom motorcycles. How do I put this delicately or correctly? There was an outlaw motorcycle gang in Ottawa. They were very fond of my finishing work on frames. I kind of had a little niche for doing that. Worked for a guy who did a lot of custom paint, Sandy McKenzie. Well, Sandy's gone, so I guess it doesn't matter if I use his name. Sandy and I did a lot of cool stuff together. Even back then, I'm pretty sure we used a fair amount of House of Kolor. We did iridescent paint jobs and poppy red pinstripes and a lot of black, and we lifted prints, which is some of the custom painters may know, is a real process where you take the ink out of the paper. Basically, you need the right kind of paper. Playboy at the time was perfect. And you get rid of the actual paper and lift the ink into a clear lacquer sheet, if you will. And so very, very specialized work, very meticulous work. Sandy was very good at it. He taught me how to do it. So just lots of cool stuff like that. But as I say, I realized really quickly that this was not going to satisfy my craving, my urge for my own stuff.
Gotcha.
And that's why I got away from that. The 70s, the music was awesome. The Doors, LA Woman, Mr. Mojo Rising, which you'll get to know more about as we go, but it is what I named my most recent build. Like I said, the music was good. The culture was good. Hippies were cool. The whole thing was just really neat, and the whole custom world, and custom cars and motorcycles and the things that were being done. And maybe that's why I have such a passion, such a love for old school choppers, bobbers. Is that's really the stuff that I grew up around. So for me, for Mac, that may be more of a newfound thing, whereas for me, it's maybe a little bit more like going home.
Yeah.
So I hope that answers the question.
Absolutely. And you virtually asked my next question, but the next question would be like, what drove the passion for motorcycles and the custom side of motorcycles? What started you in that?
Well, motorcycles were easy. That's part of why we're doing this podcast, and part of what I try to promote is cars are difficult. They're big. They're more expensive. They're hard to find space to work on. All that kind of stuff. Love cars. Don't get me wrong. It's all good. But motorcycles are something that you can do in a very small area. You don't need a lot of specialized tools. Motorcycles are relatively easy to work on and relatively easy to come by at an economical price, an affordable price for a young guy.
Absolutely.
Or a young gal. So when I was 13, there was a neighbor of ours had a 1960, around a 60, all-state scooter that had been modified for trail riding. And you know, even trail bikes weren't that sophisticated back then. So he had modified this bike for trail riding. It was sitting in his backyard. I bought the bike for $10, brought it home. My dad, who was a great man, loved him, absolutely wonderful guy. But I remember him asking me, what is that motorcycle doing here? And then the question was, how much did you pay for it? And when I said $10, $10 was a lot more then than it is now. But even then, $10 wasn't a bad deal. And he just kind of laughed and said, okay, Sam, if that's what you want, that's cool. So I, over the winter, totally tore the motor apart because it had an issue, found a bearing problem, put it back together. We threw it in the trunk of the car. I, you know, had to tie the trunk closed, but it was small enough to go in the trunk of the car. Took it out to the dunes or sand. I can't even remember where around Ottawa that was that we went. But we took it out there and I learned how to ride. It was kind of a cool deal where it shifted on the handlebar.
Oh yeah.
So you pulled the clutch in and turned the handlebar or the hand grip. But it taught me the basics of riding, you know, got me going. Hurt me a couple times, but we got past that.
Always got to learn.
And that was the beginning of the passion for motorcycles. From there, it was a small Yamaha that I bought, and when I was 14, I bought a 1966 Honda 300 Dream. Beautiful bike with that big flared front fender. It was red. Sides of the tank were chrome. Lot of fun to ride. You know, I thought that thing was huge at the time. It really wasn't that big a bike, but I wasn't as big as I am now either, so there you go. So those bikes, and then there was a Kawasaki 900 when I got out of college, and there was a Yamaha XS 1100 down the road, and just some different stuff. Then I got into four-wheel drives. Then I got into drag racing, drag raced a 66 Falcon, and then I got into an altered, and anyway, it just an evolution. But always, you know, if it had an engine and tires, man, I was all over it. That's what I wanted to do.
That's awesome.
So that's how that evolved. And it wasn't, so to bring the evolution to current, had gotten away from motorcycles like a lot of guys do when they get married, have family, all that stuff. Motorcycles are kind of frowned upon. But once my son was growing and once I was divorced, I was able to get another motorcycle, and I've just been playing with them again ever since. It's probably been, I don't know, last 15 years or so. And as Mac has seen, there's some frames in the other garage. There's engines on the shelf here. We're going to put together some XS 650s. I just all kinds of stuff, and I just love it. It's what I do after hours when I'm not, you know, I still work full time, but after hours, it's my thing.
Absolutely.
It's my jam. That's what I do.
Definitely. Well, it sounds like you got a lot of projects on the go.
Yes.
Let's hope to maybe finish one of them this year at least.
Okay. Sure.
Let's make that.
Sure.
Let's try and make
I'm
that a
aiming
goal
for
at
two,
least.
but I'll be happy with one. Yeah.
There you go. So the next question is actually going to be one that really interests me for asking you, and then asking anybody else that we decide to bring in on a conversation. But the next question will be, what is the most fondest memory that you have regarding motorcycles, whether that be on a road trip, just a night out to the bar, or a night with your friends? I don't know. What is the most memorable story that you can potentially think of?
Wow. This is going to be a little bit long-winded, but going into this podcast thing, we did learn that people like stories. So here's the story. In 2014, somewhere around there, Karen, my wife now, she wasn't then, we were dating. Karen and I had gotten together. We were both in the middle of a divorce, working through it. We met, we really got along, things were good. We started dating, things kept getting better and better. And Karen bought me a motorcycle. She bought me the Sportster that I just finished rebuilding. It was quite a story. We saw the bike down on 17th Avenue. We happened to stop at the same bar that the gentleman had pulled into. I asked him about the bike, got some details. It was a garage build. I looked it over. It was pretty good. It had a lot of really cool features that I liked and I thought were style-wise they were right. Mm-hmm. It had blemishes. It needed some refinement, but the basics were really, really good. And overall, I really liked the style of the bike. So I had mentioned this to Karen, and unbeknownst to me, on our way out of the restaurant, she stopped over and asked the man for his name and phone number. And that fall, I remember it because it was Remembrance Day. I was living in Edmonton at the time. She was in Calgary. I was coming down for the weekend. And she said, make sure you bring the truck. And I said, okay, what do I need the truck for? And she said, we're going to pick up your new motorcycle. And I didn't know what that really meant. And I thought, this is weird. Mm-hmm. So anyway, brought the truck home. Next day, we loaded it up, went up to Airdrie, and he opened the garage door and rolled this thing out. And Karen said, that's your new bike. And I said, this is freaking awesome, but why? And she said, you work way too hard. You need to blow off some steam. And, you know, solo seat, obviously she had no intention of being on this thing with me. And, you know, 883 Sportster, apes, rigid frame, very cool. So got the bike home, but you're asking about my most memorable experience with the bike. And that was I think it was the next year, we went to Friday the 13th in Port Dover. And I shipped the bike from Calgary to Kitchener, because the Harley dealer was still in Kitchener at the time. Shipped it down to Kitchener. Went in Thursday? No, they had it ready for me Friday. No, it was Thursday, pardon me. Went in Thursday. It was Friday the 13th in May that year. Friday the 13th is a great event, by the way. We'll get into that another time. But anyway, shipped the bike down. They set it up for me because we had pulled the handlebars down and stuff. They set it up for me. They detailed it. The guy who detailed it had done an amazing job. It was cleaner than I had ever gotten it. And I rode it down to Port Dover to Friday the 13th. Very cool. May, the weather was warm. It was absolutely fantastic. It was a great ride. The highway was good. And here I was, a guy in his mid-50s on a hardtail chopper pounding my way down the highway. And I thought, man, I am the coolest old guy out here right now. And went down to Friday the 13th, rode the bike around town. And on the Friday, I mean, Friday the 13th is crazy. The town is just packed. There's tons of motorcycles. There's way more people. The place is crowded. The bars are full. Everybody's there. Anyway, it's quite an event. And I rode the chopper down to the street that runs right along the lake, right along the beach. Rode across, and I stopped at the lights at Main Street, and there was an OPP, Ontario Provincial Police, an OPP officer standing there, and she looked at me, and I looked up Main Street, and it was just solid people. And I said to her, I said, can I ride my motorcycle up Main Street? And she said, sir, you're on a motorcycle, you can do whatever you want today. And I said, cool. And I turned that thing up Main Street. I don't know how long it took me to go up Main Street to the other end of town. I mean, it was first gear all the way, lots of stops. You know, people were walking in front of you. You had to wait for them to get out of the way. But so much fun riding my chopper through this crowd on Main Street to the other end of town. We watched a group called the Practically Hip. We danced on the beach. The concert was awesome. The whole vibe, the place just rocks. It's the coolest Canadian motorcycle show that I think exists.
Awesome.
And then so we stuck around for Saturday, and on Sunday I had to ride the bike back to Kitchener so that they could ship it out Monday back to Calgary. And I rode it through a snowstorm.
A snowstorm.
A snowstorm in May. So Thursday, beautiful, warm, you know, short sleeves. I was thinking I was the king of the world. And there I am on Sunday in it's a good thing I took my touring gear with me. I had my touring pants and stuff and the liners in them because it was freaking cold.
I bet.
And I got about halfway back to Kitchener. Karen was in the rental following me. And I got about halfway back to Kitchener and I pulled over to the side of the road, and she pulled over right behind me. She got out of the van and came running over, and she said, "What's wrong?" I said, "I had to stop. We're going to have to change a battery."
I guess so.
You know what? I'm going to finish the story.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we'll change it, and then maybe I'll finish it again.
Yeah.
So she came running up to me and said, "What's wrong?" And I said, "I can't work the clutch anymore. My fingers are so cold I couldn't squeeze the clutch.
no.
I had to stop and rest." Anyway, I did manage to ride through a snowstorm. It was exceptional. Got it back to the dealership. One of the people there came in on a Sunday and met us, and we got the bike to the dealership. So that, as I said, this was going to be long-winded. This was a big deal, and it's not just a piece of it that I can say was my favorite. The whole thing overall was just amazing. So that is my favorite experience with a motorcycle.
I love it. Thank you very much for sharing that story, Bruce. That was a great story.
Thanks for asking.
Of course. So I can honestly say from my time, my styles and preferences of bike have changed over the years. Where for you did that start, and what did that evolve into?
Oh boy. Well, you know, really, Mac, the biggest contrast would be going from, you know, in 70, well, I would have been 79, probably 79 or 80 when I bought the Kawasaki 900. It was a 73. That was the era of that hyper bike. So, you know, the Honda 754 kind of kicked things off. That was, I mean, a 754, ooh, that was a big deal.
Yeah.
And then Kawasaki came along with this 900, which I interpret as kind of that first hyper bike. So from that, which I had a lot of fun on, traveled a lot on it. I was the right age. I had friends who had bikes. We did a lot of traveling, but that was the bike of the day. And now, of course, now that I can afford it, and now that I get to play with what I would prefer to have fun with, it's Harley Davidson. So the contrast from hyper bike to chopper. I do have a touring bike, an Ultra, XS 650s. Awesome engine, awesome bikes, super cool bobbers, choppers. So like a Sportster, they make really good pieces too.
Yes.
And I'm really looking forward to getting this this first one done, this first XS 650, which will be more of a cafe racer than, well, it will be a cafe racer, not a chopper bobber, but again, it's all good. But
Oh yeah.
hyperbike to chopper, that was the big change.
Gotcha. And that's where you've settled, is the bobber kind of chopper, just custom bike realm.
Yeah, it's all about custom now. So another quick, well, I'll try and make it quick or we're going to run out of time here. Another quick little story. I built several years back, before I did my bike, I built a bike for our daughter-in-law, and Tracy has been absolutely wonderful to me, and I wanted to do something special for her, and I knew that she wanted a motorcycle. So I found a Kawasaki KZ 440, pardon me, KZ 440, and I did a frame up on it and did a cafe racer style, nice little fiberglass pod behind the seat and everything. Did metal flake purple with white inlays, put the name of the bike, which is Frankie, on the sides of the gas tank. Found a Sportster gas tank on the shelf at a shop and bought it for a good price. So anyway, did up Frankie, and when I did it, I had somebody come over and give me a quote on doing the paint job that I wanted. And the quote was $10,000.
Wow.
And I went in the house and I said to Karen, I said, wow, $10,000 is a lot of money. I said, you know, I used to paint. I could probably buy a couple of guns and do the paint myself for less than a fifth of that. And she said, you know what, why don't you do that? So that had been, I figured it out, I'm pretty sure it was 42 years since I had picked up a paint gun.
Wow.
And I sprayed that bike and absolutely fell in love with painting again. And now that I do it for myself, I do it because I love it. I do it for the creativity, the expression, you know, all that stuff. I get in the booth and I just get lost doing stuff, or I get out here in the evening doing airbrushing, you know, doing endless lines or patterns, you know, the spades that I did on the chopper. So I've fallen in love with painting again. I am trying my damnedest to learn how to weld. But I'm old and I'm shaky. You're a young guy with pretty steady hands. You'd do much better. You should learn now, trust me. But I do okay, and I make it work.
Good. That's awesome. Well, Bruce, thank you so much for answering all of those questions. You know, I feel like it was very informative, and I mean, I got to know you pretty well. So that is really good. And now we're going to move on to the lightning round, like we did in the last episode. Bruce apologized for reading off of the paper, and I will also do the same because my memory is lacking at best. Yeah. So we'll get that rolling. So first off, favorite food?
Favorite food? Olives.
Olives.
Yes.
Okay. Interesting choice. Favorite style of bike?
Old school chopper.
Attaboy. Good answer. Beer or wine?
Wine these days because, well, you don't need to know but because I was a fatter guy than I am now. My cardiologist put me on Ozempic, and for me, beer and Ozempic do not work together. It just doesn't fit. So 2 years ago, I would have told you beer. Today, I have to say wine.
Copy that. What is your favorite ride, as in area?
Well, you know, I'm gonna have to go back to southwestern Ontario, and that ride from Cambridge down to Port Dover, man, that's nice country. That's a nice ride and a really decent road, which of course us hardtail riders appreciate a nice road.
Yes.
So I would say Cambridge to Port Dover.
Copy that. I've never ridden out east. I've never even been out east. So One of
You're
these
going
days,
to.
I'm going to. You're going to have to show me this ride.
Will do.
Where is the place that you wish to ride?
Where do I wish to ride? Not Jamaica.
Not Jamaica.
Oh, they are crazy in Jamaica.
But that means that you just have to immerse yourself in that craziness and you'll be fine.
Okay, so where do I most want to ride? California, Born Free show, out through the canyon with everybody else, man.
Yeah.
Got to do that. That's the Mecca right there.
Yeah, we were talking a couple of days ago and about just how you and I both really want to go see or go to the Born Free show. For me personally, that's like my top motorcycle event that I'd like to go to. I think that
And
would
Born
be one
Free
of the best
California.
ones. Yes,
now,
California.
Born Free Texas is coming along. Nothing against Texas. Love Texas. But if you're going to Born Free, the one you really want to go to is California.
Okay, good answer. Comfort or style?
Oh, style.
All the
Style.
way. All the way.
Sacrifice, comfort, whatever.
Yeah.
Anything for style.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah.
Rigid or suspension?
Rigid.
Rigid?
Yeah.
All the way, like across the board?
When I've got Karen on the back, the Ultra with obviously suspension is the way to go. But if it's me on the bike, yeah, hardtail.
Awesome.
For sure.
Corners or straights? You said you were a drag guy. All right. So this is maybe a little bit more complicated for you.
Yeah, and if we ever get to that pro stock deal, then I would probably say straight. But for now, that's one thing I've learned, that chopper, that hardtail, rudimentary front suspension, everything that is absolutely wrong with that for cornering makes it so much fun to corner.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, I agree.
You know what I'm talking about.
I know exactly what you're talking about. Well, that pretty much sums up the lightning round for me. So that would lead me to taper off on this episode. So what I got from most of your stories that you were telling me is that how you were able to make all of this happen, all of your bikes, all of the builds, getting back into painting, all of that stuff was all made to happen from a supportive wife.
Absolutely. Good job, Mac, giving Karen credit for that.
Absolutely.
She is so good to me. I can't say enough.
And we can all hope and dream for something as good as what you have with Karen.
Yes. And I will say the other thing is getting old is not a bad thing. Getting old, if you enjoy the experience and take the richness of it and everything, there's things like the shaky hands that are discouraging sometimes. But overall, working with young people, getting to a point in life where you can afford to do things, the possibility of retirement in a couple of more years, and then having the shop be my full-time activity. These things are all wonderful, and you know what? We live in a great country. We live in a great time. If you're listening or watching from the U.S., you live in a great country too. Our life experience is so rich and so good right now. I am just enjoying the shit out of life. I love it.
That's awesome. That is great to hear, and that is something that we should all look forward to when that time comes for us as well.
Absolutely.
So thank you everybody for joining us today on the Speed and Color podcast or on the Speed and Color YouTube. We spent some time to get to know Bruce. Hopefully we filled all of the gaps. If you guys have any questions in any regards for Bruce or myself, say it in the comments, like, subscribe. We would appreciate it. Bruce?
I love that you're so good at that, because I'm terrible for that like, subscribe stuff. But absolutely, Mac, thank you for doing this. Thank you for sitting in that chair. I hope it was a wonderful experience for you too. And I got to say, we got this thing rolling now. I'm getting excited about the next episode. And hey, like it or not, we're going to be back.
Yep, we will be here.
You bet. Thanks for watching
Thank
and
you.
listening.
See you later.